the Para-Elemental Plane of Ooze. It is also called the Swamp of Oblivion, due to its mucky nature, and the House of Chambered Madness, as many wizard tyrants exile foes here to die. Sometimes they instead trap them in pockets of air, where they either starve or go insane from boredom. It is referred to as a para-elemental plane because it is the border region between two elemental planes, in this case earth and water. The water mixes with the soil of earth, softening it into a muddy sludge. The Para-Elemental Plane of Ooze is a noxious mass of slime, ranging from clear, gelatinous goo to putrid green sludge, from runny liquid to thick solid muck. The whole place teems with insects and other disgusting critters while smelling even worse than it sounds. As you move closer to the plane of Earth, the sludge thickens to a muddy silt, becoming the color and consistency of molasses in a region called the Muckmire. The muck here hardens around creatures, trapping them like flies in amber. Perhaps one could find interesting things hardened in the goop if they're brave enough to endure the disgusting place. Towards the plane of water, the ooze becomes thin and clammy, turning green and caustic as you enter what is called the Bile Sea, named because the filth burns the skin it clings to. The only things that live here are decomposing, sickly fish. As you move towards the positive energy plane, specifically towards the quasi-elemental plane of minerals, which lies between the plane of Earth and the positive energy plane, you arrive at the slag marshes, where the ooze congeals as ore residue accumulates in it, creating a metallic paste. Here grows Iungus, a silvery, pussy weed which is poisonous to the touch. Towards the quasi-plane of steam, which is between the plane of water and the positive energy plane, is the choking gale, where the ooze thins and the wind picks up, creating an oily spray of toxic vapor that kills even creatures immune to poison. Additionally, anyone who escapes the choking gale requires weeks before they can wash the residue from their skin and hair. The stagnant sea is the area of the plane of ooze that borders the quasi-plane of salt, which is between water and negative energy. The ooze thickens and salinates, becoming caustic enough to erode metal, even magical ones. And the oasis of filth is the part that touches the quasi-plane of dust, which lies between the plane of earth and the negative energy plane. The slime thickens and congeals. As it mixes with the soil, it becomes almost organic, transforming into a disease-ridden sludge, where even things immune to disease catch illnesses. All of those descriptions were from 1st and 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, the para-elemental planes didn't exist, although the para-elementals did exist. And in 4th edition, none of the inner planes existed since it only had the elemental chaos. Now, the plane of ooze is in 5th edition, but it's described quite differently. Like all other inner planes in 5th edition, the plane of ooze being described in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide is the part that's closest to the prime material plane, possessing higher amounts of other elements, making it a little more similar to what you'd find on the prime material plane. So instead of being completely submerged in muck, it does have a ground with a breathable atmosphere above it, and it seems to have normal gravity. It resembles a filthy swamp with gnarled trees, stagnant bodies of water with weeds and mosquitoes, and buildings made of wood built on trees or stilts which eventually sink into the muck, as the plane has no solid ground under the mud. Travel. Getting here. Okay, let's go over how to get here. Although, why anyone would want to travel to the plane of ooze is beyond me. So obviously, you have the normal means of plane hopping, such as a door in Sigil, or a spell such as Gate or Plane Shift. If using Plane Shift, the material component is a tuning fork made of zinc and lead, tuned to the note A. Additionally, there is a permanent portal to the para-elemental plane of ooze in Shadakla, the 222nd layer of the Abyss, ruled by Jublex, the demon prince of slimes and oozes. At the heart of his realm is a 30-foot wide gelatinous cube. If one pushes a platinum disc against the cube, while another pushes their body through the cube, the latter will arrive in the plane of ooze. Elemental vortices to this plane are quite rare and can be found under 2 circumstances. The first is at the heart of prime material worlds that are still in a primordial state, where life hasn't fully formed. Alternatively, you can find vortices in vast concentrations of filth, such as when the corpses of plague victims are piled in one spot. A portal will spawn at the decaying, liquefying base. Within. Okay, so once here, how do you get around the plane? Well, the ooze is pretty similar to water in the sense that you can swim through it, so being a good swimmer is recommended, and it would use your swim speed. Other than that, I couldn't really find any information about traveling here, but presumably you could hire a guide. Okay, I hate to interrupt the video, but if you guys are enjoying it, I would appreciate it if you gave it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel, or left a comment, as these things really help the algorithm. Comment something you like about it, comment something you hate about it, comment on a cool idea you had, or maybe even just talk about something interesting that happened in your campaign recently. I don't really care, I just like talking to you guys. Okay, now let's get back to the Plane of Ooze. Properties. Okay, first let's discuss the physical properties of the Para-Elemental Plane of Ooze. First up, breathing. Even though it's disgusting, the ooze here has enough water content that abilities that let one breathe underwater can sort of allow them to breathe in the paraplane of ooze. A ring of water breathing works normally, however spells such as water breathing must be modified to account for the increase in mass. At least in 2nd edition. In 1st edition, they worked without modification. Creatures that can naturally breathe underwater, such as merfolk or fish, can't survive here without magical aid, as it is too thick to be processed by gills. Vision. The ooze is translucent enough to see through, but you can only see about 15 feet, assuming you have a light source. Flames won't burn here, so you'll need another source of light. Gravity. In 1st edition, the Para-Elemental Plane of Ooze had subjective gravity, meaning you can choose your own down direction and fall that way. Although since you were submerged in goo, you fell slower, and it worked basically the same way it worked in the Plane of Water. In 2nd edition, the Plane of Ooze has no gravity except in the region called the Slag Marshes, which is where the plane borders the quasi-plane of minerals. Combat. All of the limitations of fighting underwater apply here as well, as the ooze is similar enough to water. Now let's move on to the magical properties of the plane. So first, you have physical limitations that affect one's spellcasting. So without the ability to see through ooze, spells that require line of sight will not function. Additionally, all spells suffer the same restrictions as casting magic underwater. So spells like Ice Storm, which rain down projectiles, will drift harmlessly instead. Lightning spells will conduct in the watery muck around the point of origin. So a lightning bolt spell's area of effect would be a sphere instead of a line, and it would be centered on the caster. Fire magic works a little bit better here than the Plane of Water, since it's a little less wet than the Plane of Water, but only marginally so. Fire spells will deal half damage on a failed save or no damage on a successful save. Additionally, air and fire magic is diminished, meaning they function as if the caster was 1 level lower and spells higher than 4th level are impossible. Spell keys for the Plane of Ooze take the form of tinctures, oils, or elixirs, and are always thick and repulsive liquids that look, smell, and taste horrible. Encounters. So what hazards and encounters can one expect to find on the Para-Elemental Plane of Ooze? First are elemental pockets. Like all inner planes, one can find pockets of other elements here. Pockets of water are masses of comparatively clean water floating in the muddy soup of the plane. Earth pockets are dense solids suspended in the muck. The elemental pockets here are basically the same as the pockets on the plane of Earth in the thicker areas, or pockets on the plane of water in the thinner areas. So if you want some more descriptions, you can check out the videos I made on those two. Acid. This is where caustic chemicals have pooled and concentrated in one area. Characters entering this region, and on each round spent here, take acid damage with a save versus breath weapon to reduce it by half. Additionally, all objects exposed to it must save against acid or be completely dissolved. The acid here is so potent and even eats through glass, but if you manage to contain it via magical means, it is very valuable. Disease. These are pockets of illness, affecting anyone who enters it as if by the Cause Disease spell, which requires one to save versus spell or contract a disease. If they fail, they contract a disease, and then they make a Constitution check. Succeeding this means they contract a debilitating disease, which saps their strength to 2 and takes 1d3 weeks to recover. If they fail the Constitution check, they instead suffer a fatal disease, which means all healing is at 10% effectiveness, cure wounds doesn't work, they lose 2 charisma each month permanently, and they die in 1d6 months. Poison. This is an area where the chemicals of the sludge concentrate into a toxic fluid, although 25% of these are also acidic. Characters entering must make a save versus poison or suffer the effects of a random poison. Most simply deal damage, but some result in death. The acid, disease, and poison encounters only have a 10% chance to be spotted, or 50% if the character is watching out for them, as noticing a disgusting glob of muck is more dangerous than another is pretty difficult. Valuables. In addition to the hazards, the plane also houses some valuables. Objects too powerful to destroy, but too dangerous to keep, sometimes are chucked into the plane of ooze, to be forever lost and buried within the sludge. They say anything thrown into this plane can't reappear for at least 100 years, so many people have tried to rid evil artifacts by throwing them into the plane of ooze. Additionally, the pressures of the heavy slime compress minerals in the center of the plane into valuable gems. These stones are called quilla. They are usually blue and sparkle magnificently, and they sell for up to 1,000 gold pieces. Inhabitants. Quote, "Is every creature that hails from the plane of ooze just a big joke?" End quote. Nahamra Ru, a new planewalker. There aren't many creatures that live on the plane of ooze, given its repulsive and inhospitable nature, but there are a few. So first, let's discuss the natives to the plane. The first are ooze para-elementals. These are the true elementals of ooze, resembling liquid masses of dark-colored slime with writhing tentacles, although other sources describe them as globs of putty-like mud. They are quick to attack any creature they see. According to the rumors, this is because they are so disgusted by themselves they can't stand the idea of others looking at them. They sustain themselves by crushing and liquefying solid objects, a process which takes several hours. They despise the other two natives of the plane, ooze mephits and ooze sprites, and a handful of exceptionally powerful and intelligent ooze para-elementals vie for control of the plane. Next we have ooze mephits. These are mephits made out of the elemental ooze that the entire plane consists of. They make up the largest percentage of the population, and many assume they're the only natives on the whole plane. They are disgusting, pathetic creatures that live in nomadic packs. The last creature native here are the ooze sprites. These are sentient piles of goo that don't resemble sprites at all. They can bend this goo into any shape and are immune to all weapon damage due to their malleability. Even magic weapons only do damage equal to their magical bonus. For example, a +2 sword would only do 2 damage. They are intelligent, organized, and can control the minds of others via a modified suggestion spell that uses touch instead of voice commands, as their pseudopods excrete a substance that telepathically commands creatures whose skin it contacts, requiring a successful melee attack roll and the victim to fail a save versus spell. They assume any creature they meet is unintelligent, considering themselves the only sentient race on the plane, and see no problem forcing ooze mephits to do their bidding. Other creatures are either tools or food for them. Because of this, they never command a creature to do something that requires intelligence or initiative, nor will they require them to say anything, as they don't even realize verbal communication is possible. Ooze sprites live in nomadic tribes led by chieftains, and every 6 years, the chieftains choose a king, each donating a chemical of theirs to the king, empowering and enlarging it. The new king then travels the plane, killing the weak ooze sprites, keeping the population small and strong. They reproduce when each member contributes a small amount of mass and intelligence towards a new offspring. They don't speak, but they do communicate with sign language using their pseudopods and body shape. Animals. Basically, any animal notorious for being unsanitary, gross, or slimy can be found here, including leeches, maggots that never grow into flies, electric eels, and jellyfish. The plane also has its fair share of animentals, elementals that take the form of an animal. Many of them, such as cats and dogs, consider themselves as cute and might try to hop in your lap or lick your face, but this is gross given the element they're made out of. Monsters. Every kind of pudding, jelly, slime, or ooze is found here. They are also empowered on the plane, having maximum hit points and an increased intelligence. Additionally, Otyugs and Neo-Otyugs try their hardest to find their way onto this filthy plane. Besides those, Marids will come here to hunt occasionally, and Dao will sometimes bathe here. Major players. So what powerful beings reside here? Well, I can only find 2. The first is Bwim II, the Para-Elemental Princess of Ooze. She resembles an undulating mass of violet sludge, and she is considered among the weakest of the Archelementals. However, she has made an alliance with the Demon Lord Jublex to offset this weakness. And the other major player is the Warlock of Ooze, a wizard from Krynn who was infused with chaos during a war called the Chaos War. It made him more powerful, but also made him crazy and catapulted him into the plane of Ooze. He survived due to his magic, and has become an elementalist specialist wizard specializing in the para-element of Ooze, crafting Ooze-themed variations of spells such as Wall of Mold, Gelatinous Servant, and Flesh to Slime. Locations. So there really aren't any permanent structures here. Given the nature of the plane, there's really nowhere for you to build a foundation, but occasionally the natives do build minor fortifications. Outside of that, I could find 3 named locations on the para-elemental plane of Ooze. The first is simply called the Cysts. When a wizard casts the Sink spell on someone, which is an 8th level spell that sinks someone into the ground, trapping them, it sinks them into the ooze. Then the sludge around them congeals and perfectly preserves the victim, keeping them alive indefinitely. These cysts are scattered throughout the plane. Occasionally one ruptures, freeing the poor creature, who usually immediately drowns in the muck. Gnome's Home. An expedition of gnomes mining in the quasi-plane of minerals accidentally found themselves in the slag marshes of the paraplane of Ooze. They were stuck here, and using their supports, minecarts, ropes, and other mining tools, created a gigantic craft and learned how to hunt worms, eels, rays, and other animals for food. By allying with the Ooze para-elementals and the Ooze methods, they were able to survive. They have continued to add to their raft, which is now 500 feet long. Approximately 40 gnomes live here. The last is the Trash Heap. See, all of the sewage, garbage, and other waste of the city of Sigil is dumped into the plane of Ooze from a gate in Sigil's sewers. The spot all of this garbage is dumped into is called the Trash Heap, and it stretches for miles. The surrounding area is called the Sargasso Sludge, where bits of debris float in the muck, sometimes resembling ships, giving it its name. And that is all of the information I could find on the para-elemental plane of Ooze. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe for more D&D related content.